let's talk about the journey. You quit Access, you joined IIM. The joining, however, was marred with the fact that most of the world this year was in some sort of a lockdown or distancing of sorts. Your initial terms were online and remote until India eased up the lockdowns, and now you've traveled to campus, but it's still online. Talk to us about the logistics around this and what the first few terms have been during the first year at IIMA.
Yeah, sure. Well, so again, this depends on which IIM you are in. Although there are threads that will connect to most of them because very similar processes. You generally get 45 days to 60 days to start your MBA from the day of announcement of results. And for me, a specific consideration was, is it a good idea to go to an MBA right now? Because in May, it was very uncertain. We were not even sure how internships are going to happen. We know that within joining 3 months or 4 months, my summer internship interviews will happen. Will firms turn up? Is it a good idea to even start? That was a major question for me, and it's very specific to this year. But now in hindsight, shouldn't have stressed that much. Things worked out fine. But again, things could have gone wrong as well, especially given how my journey was. But then, I did speak to a bunch of people I knew. Axis Bank has I wouldn't say it's not a plan, but generally the trend is 3 or 4 from Axis Bank make it to IIM Ahmedabad. Even my batch has a couple of my colleagues here. My senior batch also has 3 people from the same firm. So, well, it's, I spoke to people I knew from IIT Madras who made it to IIMA and my colleagues and seniors. The general sentiment was that, well, it's not going to be as rosy as it was for us, but it's still rosy, especially given that you are looking for a change and you can always back IIMA to figure things out. And I would say, yes, mostly from whatever I've seen of how the process was managed with all other business schools in India, I think, personal opinion, of course, that A managed the online transition really well. We had our first infrastructure. We got a mail saying, guys, a lot of people may be in remote areas. You may be in your hometown, etc. We just want to check your internet connection, laptop, how everything is going. So we had a 45-minute intro call with the entire batch on Zoom because IIMA also had a Zoom client. So they also wanted to check how the servers worked. So we had the first call in May itself. May 8 was the result day. And before June, we had an intro call. I would say for June 1st week, not May. Sorry. Yeah, June 1st week, we had this call.
What was the size of the class you said?
388 for PGP. And you will have 50 more folks doing FABM. FABM is called Agricultural Business Management.
Agribusiness, yep.
So totally your first year MBA batch will be approximately 430 strong.
Got it. Okay, so they managed to transition well. They had the introductory Zoom call to test out what the technicalities are going to be. And then you guys started having classes online. There are 2 parts that I want to talk about the journey while at IIM. I want to talk about the academics and I want to talk about the recruiting. I suspect these are the 2 biggest things that most people looking to come to IIMs want to focus on, either some academic growth or, hey, can I get the job that I want? Let's start with career first. That's my area of interest. What was it that you were keen on pursuing? What was the mindset that you were in when you got into IIMA, saying that, okay, this is what I'm going to target in my first year? And what were the realities like within the first few months when you had to begin recruiting?
Right. So I joined IIM with the mindset that I would try out consulting for summer internship. That's also mostly credit to you as well. It's part driven by our discussions that I wanted to do consulting. So that's exactly what I thought. I had a head start because I knew that I wanted to do consulting. A lot of people take 1 month to figure out what they want to do. And trust me, the first 4 months before placements are really intense.
So how do you walk us through it?
Exactly. So it's intense because you manage a lot of things at the same time, and it just hits you even when you think you're prepared. I had spoken to my PGP2s, we call them, the second years, and I had an idea of what to expect, but it's just the sheer size of everything, right? So the academics here is designed in a way that needs a lot more time than whatever you've done in undergrad because of the way it's taught.
Why so?
I'll talk about it.
Yeah, good.
Because every course is a case-based course, right?
Yep.
I think most B schools are like that.
Yep.
Nobody is generally, especially in India's undergrad ecosystem, nobody is prepared for a experience where you spend 3 hours reading, not 3 hours, but 3 hours reading 3 cases for 3 different courses,
Yep.
and then spend cooking class for that.
Yep.
So nobody is prepared for that. On top of it, your selections for all the club memberships, all of that happen in the first month.
Yep.
And then CV collection, CV proof collection is the major, is the thing that takes up most of your time.
Yep.
So what happens is the CV verification process of different IIMs have different policies, with A known to be the stringent and most robust of all.
Okay.
So you have to get more, whatever you write, you need to get it verified by somebody who supervises you or who's managing it currently. For example, if I write something, if I say that, whatever I did led to like 3x growth in sales at my company, my supervisor has to approve it from an at company email ID. Cannot come from his personal email ID.
Interesting.
So we send an email to them asking them that the policies can be covered differently, but the point is everything has to be approved. There is nothing you can write on your CV that is not verified by at least one person. And even if you write something about your undergrad, since most of the folks here are just 2 years away from undergrad, you reach out to your dean of undergrad and tell them this is the scenario and you need their help in getting your whatever you write on your CV vetted. And everybody is aware of this because a lot of folks do. I mean, especially in IIT, it works well because a lot of IITians do end up at IIM. So this is the standard request they receive every year. Some IIMs let you bunch all the requests together. Okay, IIT Madras students, 15 of them are here. All of them bunch the request in one email thread and just put it to the Dean of Alumni Affairs, get them vetted by Dean of Alumni. They don't really care how the Dean gets his, I mean, the Dean is not going to know everybody and what they did in different leadership roles. But if the Dean is satisfied, we don't care. Okay. But Ahmedabad doesn't really work that way. You need to get it vetted by the professor managing whatever you say. For example, if you manage the Tech Fest, you need to get it from the faculty advisor of the Tech Fest. You cannot get it just from the Dean of Faculty.
Interesting. So quite thorough in terms of its vetting process, so that the subsequent employer that's going to hire you out of IIM is convinced or satisfied that this person hasn't BS'd his way through a resume.
Yes. The process is very thorough and it takes up a lot of your time, right? So you are reaching out to people from your school, you're reaching out to folks from your college, you're reaching out to your boss. And this is not anybody's first preference. You reach out to anybody, they're going to do it over the weekend or sometime. And amidst all this, you're also figuring out how best to draft your CV. So you're managing two things, right? Sometimes, for example, the meaning of your whatever you write changes from was part of a team to led the team.
Or led an initiative. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So, getting a CV reviewed from alumni and from your seniors, you drafting it yourself, discussing with your peers is one part of the thing. And getting proofs for whatever you decide to write is another thing. So you manage both of these parallelly. You have discussions about club memberships, and you also want to figure out what you want to do with an IIM. On top of it, the academics suddenly hits you. And the courses are such that everybody finds at least one or two things tough, right? So I had a mathematical background because of engineering. So I found the math courses here pretty smooth sailing. But although I had a CFA, the accounting course was not, for example. That every engineer actually feel here. The first year accounting course is I mean, you will be prepared for it, but you will find that it takes up a lot of your time.
Well,
because it's just that every course is compressed. You don't have time to actually absorb a lot of things.
And this is the thing, by the way. So for everybody who's going to listen, the similarities between top global MBA programs as well as this, in terms of the workload for the first few months, especially when you get into business school, is largely the same. But for the vetting process of the resume, which you don't get to do in global business schools, thank God. But for that, Literally, the entire first 3 months is about getting your resume ready, a heavy ton of networking, and figuring out which clubs you want to be a part of and what leadership roles you want to take as a part of that, uh, as well as the caseload, the workload in terms of academic cases. The amount of reading per case is like 25 pages. If you have three classes or 4 classes a term, on a weekly basis, you're anyways reading about 4 cases, 150 pages, digesting it, preparing for the response to those cases when you get into a class discussion. It's an enormous number of time that most Indians are definitely not prepared during their undergrad, because our undergrad system is just not this way. It's just not this way. It's more academic and rote as opposed to somewhat discussion based.
True. So that way, a lot of things hit you, and you. So in a way, I was sorted because I knew what my first preference was. Everybody tries to juggle between consulting and finance in the first month,
Always.
because yeah. So that way, I was mostly sorted, and I started to prepare also on the margins for consulting, doing a lot of things that people do, with Victor Cheng, or read this
Case
book,
interview
that case
prep
book.
and all of that. Yep.
I was beginning to get started, but did not pick up a lot of steam in the first month, precisely because of the workload and TV, etc. People start case prep around 45 days, 60 days into the IIM system, generally. Again, all of this is a very average picture, right? It could differ based on a person. It could differ based on preferences. Some folks may find it fit to, do their finance prep in the first month because they are CAs and they know this. It's their playground, and they also want to have the option of consulting, so they do consulting a little later. They get their finance pitch sorted. So it's a very personal thing how you figure out your prep. So what I'm talking about is a very average, most likely scenario. So I mean, well, and in the middle of all this, you get your first midterm exam as well. If you have a midterm every 45 days, and the best or worst thing, it's definitely the worst thing about IIMA academics is surprise quizzes. So we get every day between 4:15 and 4:30, we will have to wait for a message or email, which in an offline scenario will be a notice board message that says you have a quiz of this course at 5 o'clock today.
What? That is crazy.
You have half an hour to prepare. So you prepare or drink tea, whatever, that's your choice. But you don't, every day you are expecting a quiz or not expecting a quiz. The only way you don't have a quiz is if you don't receive a message before 30. So they don't tell you that you don't have a quiz today. They're always on your toes that way, and you have to be prepared every day for every course. And that again adds to the stress of the first month.
And these count in terms of your overall grades, I assume. Oh, Christ. Oh, man, they make it miserable. That's good to know. Okay, so besides that, a lot of the stress, the academic part, at what point, after the 45 days period, when you got your resume vetted and all of it, at what point did companies actually start coming on campus? What was the outlook towards, hey, companies are going to come, I have another 2 months to get ready before the interview days that are at IIM? Give us a glimpse of that.
I mean, generally, since most consulting firms like to have a 1 month long buddy process, okay, so I'll first cover consulting. Majorly the fields you have a consulting, finance, general management. General management are your Tatas and Birlas, Reliance, and all of them have this leadership grooming roles. That's your general management roles. You have marketing, which is which is a scene dominated majorly by FMCGs. And you have product management. These are the 5 major areas that you will prepare for. So for consulting, the number of firms are limited. So you know the firms that are going to come.
What are the firms that come to IIMA for consulting?
Over here, McKinsey, BCG, Bain always make it for every year from what I've seen. You have Carney, Strategy, and Turning Up as well, almost without fail every year from last 4-5 years, whatever I've seen. And then LEK may or may not. I haven't seen EY Parthenon come here for the last 2 years. Again, everything changes based on that year. So this is what it is seen is based on my year and my senior year. The big 4, 2 of them generally turn up. in their consulting arms, KPMG, Deloitte, etc. And then one second. Some niche consulting firms also turn up. For example, there's a procurement consulting firm called GEP. So they just consult organizations on procurement.
Okay,
There
interesting.
is RET advisors who advise only pharma companies, if I am understanding it right. Octus Advisors is an Indian consulting firm. So they also generally come to campus. Generally, you will have around 10 firms, so to speak, and you will have consulting is the major recruiter though, because a lot of these firms take a good number of candidates. So
off the 350, not including the agribusiness guys, right? Of the 350 students, what proportion of them go into consulting versus say finance roles?
Average year, you will expect around 80 to 90 to go into consulting.
Interesting.
And around 25 to finance.
And finance, are they largely investment banking type roles, or are they more corporate finance roles within industry?
Corporate finance roles are pretty limited here.
Okay.
Investment banking is your major chunk of finance roles. Then you have some sales and trading roles for Hong Kong, Singapore desks also do turn up because of Alumni Connect. You don't have a lot of, all your Mumbai S&T roles are structuring and mid-office roles, and generally people don't like to do that after MBA. So that's not an option mostly.
Okay.
You have other finance roles are, so the one I'm going for is an asset management, investment management role.
Okay.
So 1 or 2 companies you can expect in that area. And every year based on requirement, 2 or 3 private equity firms also come to recruit directly. But private equities, again, they have, of course, they are private equity firms recruiting directly from an MBA college. So the standards they hold students to is extremely, extremely high.
Yeah. And that's often the case. And I don't know about many Indian private equity firms, but largely a lot of the private equity firms tend to also, for some reason, favor the global top MBA recruits as a post MBA associate roles. I don't know if the trends have changed towards getting post MBA associate roles in large numbers from Indian schools. Perhaps ISB, I don't know. I don't know the private equity numbers, but certainly I know consulting and investment banking roles for the India practices, definitely from IIMAs. I remember when I was at Accenture for 5.5 years before business school and all of that journey, Accenture used to recruit a big chunk from IMC for the strategy practice. Not so much from IIMA, to be honest. I think the McKinsey, BCG, Baines used to poach most of those guys. Okay, so you looked at consulting. However, you're going at this moment to an asset management firm. You were placed. Just talk a person through who's trying to understand what is the recruitment process going to be at IIMA, and what the stress levels are, day 1, day 0, day whatever. Just talk us very briefly through that process.
Yeah. Good. So this, because of the way the companies have designed their processes, you generally have consulting. Okay, I need to talk about shortlists first. So you are always waiting for shortlists when you are in an IIM, right? So you give your CV to these companies. Some of them have a portal, their own company application forms to fill. Some have, some don't. And as soon as you give your CV based on 2 weeks or 3 weeks, very company dependent. There's no specific number to it. After a while, though, each company publishes a shortlist, and you're either in it or you're not, and it's very binary. Till date, the entire IIMA community is divided on whether networking with the alumni or the seniors helps in getting a shortlist.
Interesting.
Nobody has made up their mind. It's very difficult to make up your mind, because for every example, you have a counter example. There are folks who, I mean, it's very perception dependent also, right? You see a CV, you think, okay, this person will make it to a consulting shortlist. And so you have CVs of that type who have made it to shortlist just because they spoke to, I mean, again, what people think is just because they networked well and they made their interests clear to the consulting firms or finance firms. And there are folks who did that and had a good CV, but actually did not end up getting a shortlist. So it's a process that divides people on how it actually happens. Nobody has made up their mind, and I don't think anybody will, just because of the kind of shortlist people get. But then more often than not, whatever your 1 year senior batch tells you is 90% accurate. You can, if you want to get an idea of what kind of shortlists you'll make, you can always reach out to the second years. And the culture here is pretty nice in the sense you don't know any. Let's say your dream company is McKinsey, and you don't know anybody from the senior batch who interned with McKinsey last year. You just randomly ask them on WhatsApp, hey, I just want to connect about McKinsey, and the strike rate is 90 to 95%. They will say yes. It's just the question of time because people are busy. So it's easy to connect with people, especially when you're in campus because they're just one cafe away. But in a WhatsApp setting, that was a little hard because people didn't get time. But apart from that, you are always waiting for shortlist. And since it's the consulting shortlist that come up first, your understanding of where you stand within your batch is very initially shaped by the consulting firms. The finance firms generally do it after consulting firms have done it because their process is shorter and more
quick
crowded
turnaround
towards the last week of So that way you are so yeah, you give your CVs, you ask, but of course you always want to speak to people who intern in the firm to understand how the experience was, how the process is, and what they stress on in terms of interviews and buddy calls. So consulting firms have a buddy process. You a 1 year graduate alumnus is assigned to as a buddy, and I think this should be similar across B schools. I'm not sure, but
somewhat in global business schools is a lot more protracted. The processes are that you need to go through multiple rounds of networking with it's you can't get away from networking. I think it's a lot more, well, the jury is out whether networking is effective or not, even in business school. However, there is no circumventing networking in order to get to the shortlist. You just have to go through the process. Between two people that have networked, it isn't always necessary that the one that was networked more prolifically has gotten in. It could just very well be that the consulting firm at that point has engagements that suit one person's background a lot more. But because networking is a standard basis that everybody needs to go through, it somewhat evens the playing field. Not quite, but it exposes to some ridiculousness about the process of actually getting recruited as well. Consulting firms are notoriously known for it, if not most other firms, but they tend to have buddies where you can reach out, have coffee chats, and seem to have conversations to engage and associate with the culture of a firm and build a case for why you should be shortlisted for an interview. That's just for anybody who's listening and to understand what a buddy is.
Right. So this happened mostly after the CV shortlist. So you have a CV shortlist, and then a lot of people who don't want to. So CV shortlist is more like, how do I put it? The kind of candidates the company will consider interviewing. It could so if you're not in the shortlist, of course there's nothing, there's nobody, there is you're essentially out of the process. There is the odds are like zero to make it to that firm. So after the CV shortlist, anybody who gets a buddy, they then start making their case on why they want to do consulting. It's spread over 2 or 3 calls. They solve a case with the buddy. Whether these all of us, at least if I had these interviews, I would have gone with the mindset that each call is evaluative.
It is.
But some firms insist that it's not, but I don't trust them.
Yeah, it is. Believe me, as a person who's been both recruited to consulting firms from business school, as well as having gone to consulting firms and recruited business school candidates, I can tell you when I'm assigned as a buddy and I have a casual conversation, when that resume gets floated to the partners for eventually a case interview during the actual recruiting, you're often asked who has actually spoken with this person, what's your feedback on this person. You're always asked.
Right.
Okay, so always assume whether they say it's not evaluative or not. There's going to be some round of informal conversation with members of the firm, and they're going to say, so have you spoken with them? Is this person good or not? Right. So it's always assumed that it's being evaluated. Is all recruitment done within the 3 days or 4 days of the process?
You are given an interview date on which you have no control. So 3 weeks before that, you start getting tedious calls from both consulting and the finance firms. Some finance firms just push everything to the last week. Some finance firms give you 1 month to prepare for their calls. So what happens is it's very hard to do both. But what happened with me was I was doing full-on consulting prep for through the month of October, and end of October I realized, well, my scenario is not looking great for the summer internship process. So with the help of a couple of seniors, I shifted tracks. I started doing finance. It was dicey to begin with, but I thought, well, let me see what happens here. I don't want to have the. It's also because the way the process organized, right? My second preference, if consulting did not happen, was general management because I wanted the functional breadth. But what happens is they come on different days. So and this year I did not want to really risk foregoing an entire first day of placement. So I thought, well, I mean, and general management really does not the way interviews happen here. The average general management firm is a conglomerate who want you to understand what the firm's values are. It's a very behavioral interview than a very fundamental
technical functional interview.
So there's nothing to prepare for over there. I thought I'm not very bad at soft skills, so I thought I could manage it. White Capital, where I am going to intern this summer, is probably the only investment management firm recruiting from campus directly. Yes, the other asset management verticals of major banks this year, I think, refrain from recruiting. So this is probably out of campus the only such role. You have around 4 or 5 Hong Kong or Singapore desks which recruit for SNT. So this is how financing looks majorly. Corporate finance happens on the second day anyway. It doesn't happen on the same day. I mean, of course, this will, okay, by this I mean the day 1, day 2, day 3, whatever hierarchy you have, that can change based on student preferences. It's a survey that basically determines when which company turns up. But generally, the preferences of the average MBA candidate don't change year on year. Everybody wants very similar kind of roles. So that way, you can expect this to be the scene next year or the year after as well, with tail risk, whatever the tail risk is there.
Out of curiosity, are you obligated to accept the first offer that you receive if you're in line for multiple?
You're not obligated to accept, but if you, how do I put it?
If you accept one, you can't renege, essentially.
There is a concept of dream applications that only Ahmedabad has, where if you accept an offer, you can say this particular company is my dream company and I want to give it a shot.
Interesting.
So IIT Bombay also has this system. So essentially, the schools that have a higher bargaining power vis-a-vis recruiters have this policy.
Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. So that's good. Congratulations on getting the internship. I hope you do extremely well. When does internship begin?
It should be in April. Yeah.
Okay. Have the companies communicated how they're going to conduct internships in this current situation? Have companies resumed working in person these days?
We had an intro call with the firm. So
okay.
the Vital Capital is a 2016 founded company. It's founded by it has a very great set of senior leadership, but it's a very small company. Only 30 people are there in the company. So they have no problems working from home. And they have an office in Mumbai, which might open up by the time I go in April. But they're not, how do I put it? They're not keen on opening it unless, everything is back to normal. Of course, everything back to normal is a definition. That definition is not
that
the same
evolves
for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't know. There are 2 of us who are going to White Oak from Ahmedabad and 2 of us from Calcutta.
Gotcha.
So the 4 of us, we don't know how it's going to be exactly, but mostly FMCG internships are going to be in office, is what my peers understand.
Interesting.
Consultants, not sure. I think all of us are just waiting for more info,
more clarity on how it's going to be.
Yeah, because even India, India has been, the cases have been going down for 3 months, so people are generally more hopeful about things. But there is this fear of second wave.
Something's right around the corner. Okay, I want to wrap up with two specific things. Okay, I'm looking at in doing research, obviously about the program. I'm looking at what your chairman has to say. Right? He writes something interesting. He says rigor, a quest for excellence, a place to be, and T-Nite. Okay, I don't know what T-Nite is, but he seems to say that rigor, quest for excellence, at least I don't know what place to be also means, but these are some of the core tenets or principles behind this flagship program and why it's so meaningful. What is T-Nite? Let's begin with that.
T-Nite is it's a very fun 2 night events that happens between your term 1 and term 2. After term 1, you get a break of 2 days, and that's the only break you get in between your entire first year PGP. There is no term course.
Wait, sorry, it just got interrupted.
So
you said there is no what?
There's no break between your terms in first year PGP or in second year PGP. The only break you get is between term 1 and term 2. And during those 2 days, you have a T-Night, which is supposed to stand for talent night. It's a cultural, intra-college cultural event where we're all divided into 5 sections in the first year.
Right.
So first year academics is very rigid in terms that there is no choice you can make.
Right.
Everything, the curriculum is designed for you.
Right.
Your section is assigned for you. Your study groups are also assigned for you.
Interesting. Okay.
When I say study group, it's I mean, you can of course study with whoever you want, a group study, but
the formal groups with which you're supposed to submit projects and everything else. Yeah.
Right. So that's also is assigned for you in first year. So essentially, how I feel like describing it is, people are at different stages of maturity when they come to an IIM degree. So in first year, the management just assumes that everybody is a kid and does everything for them. And they believe that the first year trains everybody and everybody is very mature. And the second year is all that flexible. Second year, I don't think there is many compulsory courses. You just choose whatever course you want as long as you complete the required credits. The classes can be at any time. It's not a specific time. If the professor wants to hold a class at Saturday 10 p.m., he or she will have a class at Saturday 10 p.m.
Interesting.
Especially in the Zoom era. Not sure about
the actual in-class era.
In the Zoom era. So I'm not sure about that. But this time I see some of my seniors taking up classes at 10. Just a second.
Yeah.
Just a minute.
So,
sorry about that.
This year, did T-Nite happen between the two terms?
It happened not between the two terms. It happened on the dates when the term 1, term 2 break was supposed to be, if things were normal. But we started 2 months late, so it was a bit weird. It was in the middle of a term when we had a weekend off, completely without any submissions. It was online. All of us were not back to campus. It was online, and it was pretty. All of us were thought this would have been a much. So T-Nite is designed as a bonding event between within your section. The timing and the structure of all the events that are supposed to happen. You generally gel really well with your section because you spend one entire very intense year together. So it's designed to just make you all closer as a section, as a group. So we thought we understood the concept of it, but we didn't really experience it. I mean, what kind of bonding will you achieve over Zoom, over just talking and saying hi? Just that.
Wasn't as effective. So hopefully the chairman next year, once things resolve, can bring T-Nite back into the focus, and hopefully I'm one of the few people who have not attended IIMA who can still come. I'll work my way into an invite somehow. But that aside, the last thing I wanted to talk about, and you spoke about academics, and that's one I wanted to speak. I saw, and for anybody who wants to go through, please go through the IIMA site, look at the academic sections. They have the set curriculum for the first year, which is mandated for most people, everybody. And then the second year is a wide range of courses that you can just randomly pick from. Do people at IIMA specialize in MBA in X, MBA in marketing, MBA in HR, MBA in finance? Is that a principle that still applies, or is it like global business schools where it's just a general management MBA? you can just choose to load up more marketing versus more finance classes?
It's the latter. You don't get a specialized MBA on your degree. You just choose whatever electives you want, whatever mix you feel you want. You might want to do a valuation course. You might want to do a digital marketing course. You can take both of them. But it's not really a mandated specialized MBA. It's very general management. It's a general degree you get.
Got it.
So, and I think the electives again depend on second year electives depend on whether you want to do the choice people make is very dependent on whether they have a PPO from the firm they interned with.
Yeah.
Because if you have a PPO, then you are a little bit more adventurous and take difficult courses.
Yeah.
And if you don't have one, you want to really monitor where your GPA is, because more than undergrad in MBA, at least over here, there is a very strong mathematical relation between your CGPA and your pay. So,
really, between CGPA and pay? Wow, that's a shame. I think this is the problem. This is one of the drawbacks of the Indian education system, where that is still the persistent thread that connects you to most opportunities and subsequently to the best paid jobs, CGPA. Even an 8 point something at IIT Madras doesn't cut it anymore. Like people like us have no hope. Okay, I'm just saying. As we wrap it up, is there anything we did not cover? What was something that surprised you about your journey at IIMA that you did not expect, maybe?
Well, so to speak, I have the two most I wouldn't say glamorous, but most covered institutions in the media, right? So IIT
I would
Madras,
take it. If you offered it to me, I would. Right. I would replace it on my resume.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very glad that I got the opportunity to be part of both of them. But then, at the risk of sounding like a braggart again, IIT Madras is ranked #1 by India's HRD department, and so is IIM Ahmedabad, right? So in a way, and a lot of IIT folks go to IIM. What I expected was a very similar atmosphere of what I did at IIT, but it's not the same. What surprised me was
what was the atmosphere like at IIT Madras?
Right. So in academics, IIT Madras was way more relaxed. Of course, it was not case-based. And by the virtue of it being an undergrad degree, you had way more time to just pursue a hobby if you wanted, or pursue a research project with a professor, for example. You can just do whatever you want. Academics did not take up all of your time. And it was inherently not a very classroom discussion oriented. That was a drawback at IIT. It was more like, there was, apart from certain third or fourth year courses, most of the courses, the in-class experience did not add any value. I could as well read the same from a book, and that's what I did. Based on my CGPA, that may not be a great strategy to follow, but the learning-wise, it was not really a big difference being in class or just reading it from a book. Over here, a lot of it is case-based, so the in-class experience counts for more. And depending on the professor and how the person manages the class, it can be great because you just all of your friends come with like very nice viewpoint, or it can just be a crap fest of people just trying to make their points to be heard because they're having FOMO. Academically, it's way more intense, and second, people are way more focused on the one thing. Because in undergrad, everybody is just trying to explore what they like and what kind of people they are. Like I became a sociable person from an introvert in undergrad. All the transformation cannot happen at MBA. You just your transformation happens in much other ways, like your worldview, the kind of job you get, your knowledge and skill set. But you don't have time to figure out what you want to do. That happens right now. I have time to do that. I can right now evaluate whether I want to do consulting or finance or everything, and I'll have like a couple of months to do it after my internship, because I'll speak to all of my friends who did different sort of roles.
Yeah.
So that way, the first year is a little overwhelming. I was never that overwhelmed at any point in my life. Even folks who came from Goldman, Goldman is notorious for making people work their ass out. So even folks at Goldman found it very hard to cope up with, because it's not stress from a single source. You have stress from 4 different sources. Yep. It's not that one person who's telling you to work all the time. It's like 4 or 5 different areas where you're anxious. You're anxious about your academics. You're anxious about your CV, you're anxious about networking, then placement, and then there's the club membership. So that way it was a little overwhelming. I was never that overwhelmed with undergrad. And the diversity factor here is, although in India you always have engineers everywhere, we call ourselves GEMS, general engineer males.
Oh, yeah. Well, you are. Yes, that's right. Even though you're from IITs, you are general engineer males. That's right.
So we make up around 380, 300, around 200 will be GEMS. 50% at least, definitely. So that but that's still much better than what you generally see anywhere else. That's also because the process slightly forces diversity. If you look at the interview selection criteria, there is I mean, it's a bit, if I use the wrong word, what I say will become controversial, but IIMA does try to ensure that there are people from diverse backgrounds in the place. So although somebody from a global B school would consider this, you call this diversity, but from Indian standards, this is actually good amount of diversity.
Yeah, I mean, in global business school, I suppose there's diversity of country of origin and race, which you may not find as much in an Indian school, right? Because we're largely a homogeneous race, but for some people coming in, if they're international applicants. Outside of that, like, as long as there's diversity of views, diversity of gender within what we have, diversity of sectors, I think that's good enough. We do the best out of the diversity that we can in India, and I think IIMA is doing that.
Even that, I think it'll get better over the next 5-6 years, because the engineering is the thing to do in undergrad. That opinion is fading away, so people are branching out a little bit more, and more people are also starting to consider MBA. So I have friends from mass media background, which is generally you don't find them in IIM at all. So that way it's improving a little bit. And what surprised me more was also the pay differential. I mean, for 3 months, 4 months, all of us were, did we make the wrong decision? I was sure I didn't, because it was at least decently well thought out, and I expected to get this intense. But a lot of us did think before the internship interviews, okay, why did we sign up for this? But then after the internship, everybody looked at their pay, and most of us are, I'm not exaggerating, most of us will make more in the internship stipend than actual full-time job that we had before. And in the middle of a recession year, everybody got 80% of us got opportunities that we are pretty happy with. So that way, that trust that the India incorporated places on IIMA is actually pretty high. I did not see that even in IIT Madras. So that way, again, MBA.
So there is hope, is what you're saying. Once you go into IIMs, you can hope for a significant return on investment. Even in a crisis year, it may only be better if it were 2005.
Right, definitely. Right. That was pretty surprising. I had that anxiety now, but now I don't have that anxiety. I had it before. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad. The entire purpose of a lot of the MBA success stories of all of the students that I work with and that we ultimately get to, and people who come on, actually, a lot of them willingly come on and talk about the difficult parts of the process, the trepidations, the fact that academics still matter, the fact that even an 8 CGPA doesn't necessarily place you in the top echelon from an IIT, and yet through those tribulations you can actually succeed if you're able to cope with the pressure. This is really what I want, because I want more people, more Indian students pursuing higher education, to understand what the reality is like, as opposed to just the glamour of, hey, this person is an IIT IIM. Know the journey behind it. And I hope more succeed just like you do. Dude, I wish you tons of luck. Obviously, I'm going to keep in touch with you, and we'll reconnect again. But in case people are interested to know more about IIMA, I'm going to point them to you, and please have a conversation with them and be gracious with your time. I'm super excited, man. I'm glad we got to do this. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Yeah, I'm glad. It was great. Bye.